Hi, everyone, and welcome to the monthly podcast with the one, the only Scotty Sachs. We're also affiliated with Sovereign Radio, who's been gracious to join us, and we have a very special additional guest, the one, the only Sheriff Richard Mack, who is on the advisory board of the APO, American Police Association, Peace Association, and we're going to be talking about that. I have a lot of questions to ask him. He's actually somebody I've wanted to interview for quite some time, so this is a prodigious honor. As always, if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share as it helps the channel grow and others to gain and the knowledge of being afforded. Now, before I introduce these guests, as we always do with first-time guests, I'm going to read Sheriff Mack's bio summarily. He is the former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, political activist. On the conservative side, of course, he is known for his role in a successful lawsuit brought against the federal government of the U.S., which alleged that portions of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act violated the U.S. Constitution, particularly the Second Amendment. He is a former lobbyist for Gun Owners of America, GOA, a two-time candidate for the U.S. Congress. He's also the founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs, as I was alluding to, Peace Officers Association, commonly known as CSPOA, and he's established the County Sheriff Project movement, both of whom reaffirm what they claim is constitutional power to refuse to enforce unjust and unconstitutional laws. Sheriff Mack joined the team of the American Police Officers Alliance to share his news with you and passion of many, many healed years of experience to keep you updated with the latest news, information, and resources. Sheriff Mack, Scotty Sachs, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, John. It's great to be with you.
It's an honor.
Thanks for inviting us, John.
Oh, no, this is a privilege, believe me, guys. So, Scotty, if it's okay with you, with your permission, I know Sheriff Mack is pressed for time as expected, so I'm just going to go right into my questions with him. And then we'll come back to you, Scotty, at the end to circle back. Sheriff Mack, I've always associated you fondly back during President Trump's first term as a preeminent leader in terms of helping to deputize people to become sheriffs and join the fight in rebuilding America's law enforcement initiative back to the constitutional republic. For the audience's sake and myself, I'm curious, how did the initiative get started and where do you stand with this in present day?
Well, it goes back probably 200 years in American history where the old Western sheriff never had enough deputies in cases of emergencies, and he deputized the townspeople and said, hey, get your gun, get your horse, and meet me right here. And a lot of times it was an order, not a request. And we can see the failure of that in High Noon when Gary Cooper played the town sheriff, and everybody was too afraid to come and back him up. And then his wife ended up having his back. Look, the American people are in charge of this government at all levels, and they have a responsibility to help keep the peace, just like the sheriff does. We hired him full-time. We appointed him. He directly reports and answers to the people. He has no other supervisor or boss. We, the people, are his boss. Therein lies his power. Therein lies his authority. Do you know why he has a badge? Because we, the people, said he could, and we authorized it. Why he carries a gun? Because we authorized it. And so, Joe Arpaio from Maricopa County, the sheriff there, had 2,500 on his posse. It was tremendously successful, and we highly recommend the same today.
Well said. And I think to your point, Sheriff Mack, it ultimately comes back to God's free will. Everything's by consent, because you kind of alluded to that. So I think it all goes back to biblical precepts. You're no doubt, Amen. Sheriff Mack, well aware of the massive progress ICE has been making nationwide. Last week, I saw you in an interview with a gentleman, the network eludes me, but ICE is conducting a raid and removed, I believe it was 16 illegals at a Home Depot in Los Angeles, not too far from me, unfortunately. They were tied to the notoriously dangerous MS-13 gang. How significant of a job do you think ICE is doing, and with its leader, Tom Homan? And what steps do you see taking place in the coming months to continue to remove illegals as well as the undesirables in America? And how radically does this change the citizenship process for people wanting to come to America as we return to a fully restored constitutional republic?
Well, obviously, all people are welcome to come to America, but there's a process for that. And there is a lawful process to do it. There's like 26 different laws that would allow someone to come into our country. Many people, including a politician in the Los Angeles area, a lady of Asian descent, has assailed the Democrats tremendously because of their open door policy that violates the laws. She said, my family has been waiting. Some have already come here and took 10 years and thousands of dollars. And I have other families still waiting in line to do it lawfully. And these Democrats allow people to come in front of us and just do it criminally. And so she's absolutely correct. Uh, the Democrats keep pushing this and putting people who want to come in lawfully and want to seek lawful asylum, and they just brush them aside, act like, no, we want them in right now. Why do the Democrats want them? Two reasons, and most of it has everything to do with voter rolls. They want a census to count illegals, and they've already said that. They're already trying to do it, which is totally illegal, probably treasonous, and then also putting Democrats on the voter rolls, adding them to the Democrat voter rolls, and most of them are not even citizens. And do the Democrats care? No. They want these non-citizens voting, and they want them voting now so that the Democrats can achieve a monopoly of power nationwide. That's what all of this has been about. And for the president to participate in that, I believe is absolute treason.
I agree. I agree with you. And you used a key word, Sheriff Mack, in that in terms of lawful, because there's a big difference between law and the color of law. Legal, lawful language, as you know, well matters. A personal reference, my mom has a good family friend that we've known for a long time in her condo in Florida. She's been trying to get her kids from Romania legal citizenship for the past 13 years. Should not take 13 years to get somebody here. That's ridiculous. Meanwhile, people are, as you said, gaming the system ostensibly, and getting in much sooner. So doing things the wrong way, we have to have accountability for that. And you're absolutely right. Sheriff Mack, many are speculating openly about President Trump's announcement to bring in the National Guard to DC and reform the city. Martial law seems to be on the table for now as well. Is this relegated to just DC, or is it part of a bigger equation for major blue cities like Boston, New York, LA, Chicago, and the like?
He doesn't have the same authority in those other cities. He can go to those other cities, but it has to be a criminal activity, criminal element that is so egregious that he has the authority to take action. And I would suggest that it would need congressional support. However, Washington, D.C. is a completely different animal. And let me read to you what the Constitution says about Washington, D.C.
Please.
Right here, Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 8, 17. This is what the federal government has the authority to do: to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever. Whatsoever. Over such district and not exceeding 10 miles square by cession of particular states. So states had to cede their land over to the federal government, and we had to pay for it. And with the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States. In other words, it is the capital of the United States. And to exercise similar authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature, that's the United States legislature and the state legislatures, and the federal government has exclusive authority on all of that. What doesn't have a right to exist is Washington, D.C., the city. And now they're trying to, of course, they tried for years because the Democrats still want to stack the deck as soon as they can. They want to make it a state. That is absolutely so absurd. The federal government is to run Washington, D.C. They should establish a committee and get a Capitol Police Department. That's fine. FBI, whatever they need to take care of the 10 miles square of the United States Capitol, and the chief executive over that land and that capital city, or not city, capital government, is the president of the United States. So does he have the authority to do everything he's doing in Washington, D.C.? Yes. Does he have to be a little bit more careful going into Baltimore, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York? Yes, because they are autonomous. But when it gets so bad, the president can enter and fill the gap.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff Mack. I appreciate the articulation. This is more of a speculative question as a follow-up to what you just shared, but
Okay.
let's presuppose for the moment, I think he will, or he is federalizing as of tomorrow, DC. Once he gets a foothold on DC, how much of a systemic effect can that have on the other aforementioned cities like Boston, New York? How long would that take? And do you think that ties into success for the midterms next year?
Well, it always has something to do with it, tying it into politics and the success of the midterm. Usually, the incumbent president doesn't do well during the midterm. In other words, it would be favoring the Democrats. But the
Mhm.
Democrats have been so utterly stupid and so utterly corrupt, and that they're telling the world we want to keep the MS-13 gangs here. We want to keep Tren de Aragua from Venezuela. We want to keep the pedophile human traffickers. We want to keep the international terrorists. And now the international terrorists are actually, and have been for about 5, 6 years now, uh, coalescing with the cartels. So Trump was correct to uh, register them as international terrorists because that's who they're working with now. And now these sleeper cells exist in our country. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, Kamala Harris. And thank you, Democrats. That's why they're here. And that's why there is such a pushback to keep them here because it's part of their agenda to increase the seats in Congress and to increase the Democrat voter rolls. This is so highly corrupt. It's almost as corrupt as funding Planned Parenthood, and that's the first thing on that I think should be on the presidential list, the to-do list now for President Trump and his administration. Look, we've secured the border, which should have come first. Now we've got to stop funding Planned Parenthood that provides no government service but gets about $800 million a year from taxpayers. That has got to stop.
Completely concur. I mean, the right to life is such a paramount issue. I mean, we're not here if it's not preserved by God. So you're absolutely right about that. Sheriff Mack, continuing just for a moment with the talk points about DC. You hear him talking about how he wants to make it a clean city, a safe city, and we know the reasons for that with federalization, and that's fine, and that's very good, and hopefully that proliferates throughout the country. But my understanding at one point is he was going to demolish DC with the mission was complete to restore the Republic. Is that still a plan to kind of have it as like a DC as a museum, as a cautionary tale of never going back to the deep state's agenda?
I hope he didn't really mean bulldoze some of the neighborhoods, although maybe some of them are so torn down and need it. I would have to look at that.
Hmm.
I attended the FBI National Academy in 1991 while I was sheriff. I got an invitation to the FBI National Academy. It's an 11-week academy course. I always wanted to do that. And my father retired from the FBI. And so I actually took off 11 weeks and went to the FBI Academy. They know how to do training. They're excellent law enforcement training. And while I was there, the reason I bring that up, while I was there, I had a guy in my class, a police officer, Lieutenant Reggie Smith from Washington, D.C. And I said, "Hey, Reggie," we became very good friends. I said, "Is there a way on the weekend when I'm off here at the academy that I could go riding with one of your police officers in the worst crime area of your city?" He goes, that would be Precinct 7. And I said, "I would really like to have the experience to ride along for a few hours." He said, "You've got it." He made arrangements for me to do it. And let me tell you, I don't know if you know what Code 3 is in law enforcement talk. Code 3 is lights and siren.
Hmm.
All we did all night long was lights and siren. It was an absolute war zone. And we went into the ghettos and to the projects, and I wasn't allowed to carry a gun. And I'm telling you, it was pretty scary. But what I saw absolutely floored me that this is the capital of the United States of America. I would venture to say that some of those places like that would be great to start over, get rid of the buildings, put up nice apartment complexes instead of these rundown projects. And I think that would have a very positive effect on the people who live there. But right now, Trump is totally within his rights. And historically speaking, John F. Kennedy did the same. He sent troops to Montgomery, Alabama, to make sure that students were allowed to go to college there. So he tried his best to end segregation. I totally support him in that, because what is the ultimate goal in America? The goal is safety and liberty. And JFK did it, and he's the icon of the Democrat Party. He did it. You never hear anybody complaining about that one. So Trump is doing historically what is correct. And again, folks, safety and freedom are number one. And if Bass and Newsom won't provide it, then Trump filling the gap is totally okay.
Completely agreed, Sheriff Mack. Injustice for all, not just some. So you're absolutely
Correct.
right with that. Just two more questions for you, Sheriff Mack, and then Scotty, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for being so gracious to set this up and being patient in the background there. What are the as far as the CSPOA, what are the latest updates and plans for that? And what plans do you have in the way of, so a lot of the police officers are working as opposed to the sheriff's division, obviously, for the corporation and not the Constitution. So what plans do you have or initiatives with re-educating police officers into the Constitution to which they swore an oath and not the current U.S. corporation which they're operating?
Well, we provide the constitutional training, the organic constitutional training for all police departments and all sheriff's offices across the country. We invite county commissioners to be a part of that, and we have plenty of time. And right now, 3 weeks ago, I made an appearance at the Florida State Sheriff's Association conference. I spoke at their breakfast on Monday morning. It'll be 3 weeks ago this coming Monday. And we're doing that. We're trying to do that much more often. I just spoke to the president of the Arkansas Sheriff's Association yesterday, and we want a bigger appearance and a bigger influence on the sheriffs and the training, because most of them do not know about my Supreme Court case, how powerful it was, how much it backs everything that we're talking about today, and how the peace officers of this country and the sheriffs, being the leaders of the law enforcement community nationwide, must know and understand the significance of our oath of office. Remember the oath. What did it say? And what responsibility does that bestow upon all of us in law enforcement nationwide? It presupposes that we know and understand the Constitution, because our oath is an allegiance to the Constitution, not to the corporations and not to the corrupt officials. And just like Martin Luther King said, we all have a responsibility and a duty to obey just laws. In other words, constitutional laws. But he also said, and he was writing this from a jail in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. He was in jail. He got arrested over 30 times. Well, that kind of sounds like Trump, doesn't it? And Martin Luther King never committed a crime. Never committed. He was part of civil disobedience, yes, but he was also very peaceful with it. And he said, we all have a responsibility and a duty to disobey unjust laws. Same with the sheriffs. Could you imagine a sheriff saying, oh, but we have to enforce all the laws no matter what, no matter how horrible they are? No, we don't. Liberty comes first. Our duty is to protect the civil rights of every citizen in this country. And in my county, I am the conservator of the peace. That is 2 words I took out of the Delaware Constitution, the first state. The sheriff is the conservator of the peace, and that is what we are. And we are here to protect the God-given rights, the civil rights of all people, regardless of race, color, creed, nationality. We're here to protect those rights. And that is exactly what we should do. But if we don't know what the rights of the people are, how are we going to protect them? And that's where our training comes in. And that's where this most amazing, miraculous Supreme Court case comes in. And I challenge everyone to get a copy of this. This is the highlighted version of my Supreme Court case. Everyone needs a copy of this. It is the most powerful and most significant 10th Amendment decision in the history of America.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure, of course, towards the end to leave all those links in the description so people can find that publication as well as your work with respect to the CSPOA. And it's a perfect segue, Sheriff Mack, because that's my last question for today. We kind of prefaced it with your bio talks about the 1993 Brady handgun case where you went up against former President Bill Clinton. But not everybody may be familiar with that case. So I want to ask you two questions. What was the significance of that case with respect to overly aggressive overreach of gun control laws? And how were you able to soundly defeat the former president when it was a fairly formidable opposition?
Well, we need to make this clear. He was president at that time. And I always quip real, with tongue in cheek a little bit. I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it. And we won. And we won. And so, yeah, it was very significant to protect the Second Amendment because the Brady bill was a gun control law. And there were 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed 1 year after each other. In 5 years, their goal was to completely gut and destroy the Second Amendment. 6 other sheriffs joined me in this lawsuit. Thank God they did. And I was so happy when they did. Yeah. So Sheriff Prince and I lost at the Ninth Circuit Court. But Romero and Coog won in New Orleans at the Fifth Circuit. That guaranteed us a trip to the Supreme Court. And what this did was diminish the role of the federal government in our lives locally, and it prevented them ever conscripting and commandeering sheriffs and other state and local officials for federal bidding. That was huge. We stopped the overreach of the federal government, and we diminished their role in our lives. And we restored the 10th Amendment to its proper place.
Thank God you did. And thank you for doing that on behalf of.
It was a real miracle.
Yeah, well, it's an act of God. Thank you. Thank you, Lord, for that. And thank you for your courage and forthrightness to stand in the gap and do that. Now, I know I said that was my last question, so I apologize. After this, Scotty, I will turn it over to you. But I think this is an important, noteworthy sub-question, Sheriff Mack, which is, right now, President Trump is, with your help in conjunction with others, is cleaning out DC, which includes the Supreme Court. There's 3 female Supreme Court judges who are highly corrupt, and I don't think were actually duly elected. Do you think he's going to be successful in getting them out of that position and putting in quality Supreme Court judges who will actually be constitutionally sound?
That would be another miracle, but I hope so. But we need to quit playing politics with Supreme Court appointments, and none worse than Biden. I'm going to get a black woman. I don't care if she's competent or qualified. I'm just going to put a black woman. Well, we've seen the horrible thing. She obviously she doesn't know what she's doing. She's in way over her head, and she just sticks with Democrat dogma. She really is so terribly unqualified. But and you want to talk about politics? The 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court at the time when I did my lawsuit sided with me, and the 4 Democrats sided with Clinton. I don't want to see politics like that in the Supreme Court. That bothered me immensely then, and it still does now. They're supposed to be upholding and defending and enforcing the United States Constitution, and they don't. They just follow political dogma, and I'm fed up with that entirely. So I hope Trump can have a big change on that. And by the way, we're trying to have a Save the Sheriff conference in Washington State, where they're attacking the office of sheriff immensely right now. And we need to raise money for that. Anybody, please go to our website, buy our books, become a member of our CSPOA posse just as soon as you can. Be a part of this peaceful and effective solution, but help us raise the money for that conference in Washington. We've got to save Washington. We've got to save the sheriffs there. And if we don't raise the money for it, we're not going to be able to do it. So folks, this is part of the holy cause of liberty. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of money to do it. And I ask each of you to help us with that. Join the CSPOA, become a member, and become a part of this amazing holy cause of liberty.
100%. We will, of course, Sheriff Mack, put that link in the description. And to your point, let's not forget about Kagan and Sotomayor, who were complicit under the Obama administration. They stood with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who satanically supported abortion. 60% of the abortions in America were under her watch. She also signed up for pedophilia, consensual sex between children and adults, happened to her watch. And Kagan and Sotomayor supported that. So I think people need to be aware of that. It's disgusting. And
Yeah, it is
people
disgusting.
knight her like she was some saint when it was anything but. So we want to rip the cover off of that. Scotty, you've been patient, so I'm going to turn the ball over to you, good sir.
Well, I'm going to get
Well,
out of
first,
here. And I think,
thank you,
yeah,
Sheriff Mack, for
yeah.
being
Again,
here. Always good to see you,
Salute
Sheriff
you.
Mack.
Well, Scotty, I'll let you give the rest about what CSPOA's been doing and how important it is to join our posse. But thank you, brother. John, thank you, brother, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Thanks for being here. You're on, good sir.
Well, what an amazing guy, isn't he?
Absolutely.
I mean, you ask him any question and he's going to fire back an articulate answer. That's the first thing I noticed. Well, I'd say, John, let's keep this focused on
Sure.
Sheriff Mack and the CSPOA, this
Please.
conversation. I made some notes of some of the things you guys talked about. I think it's was a very enlightening conversation. Every time I listen to Sheriff Mack, I kind of learned something. Uh, we've got to remember the sheriff is the only elected law enforcement official in the county. And as such, the most important law enforcement official has the singular most power within a county, such that he can, in fact, indeed defend we the people. I'll give an example. Sheriff Mack didn't talk about today, but there was a ranch owner, I believe it was Montana or Wyoming, don't quote me, who was being threatened by the Department of U.S. Department of Land. I don't remember the uh, institution, the federal agency that was hounding him. The Land Management Bureau and another agency were hounding this man, threatening to take his land for numerous reasons. They cited they wanted his land, this man's ranch. They wanted it. Now we know the nefarious agendas behind the land grabs. There's a great book out, The Great Maui Land Grab by Michelle Melendez, one of our Sovereign Radio partners that you're now a part of. But the land grab scheme was shut down by who? The county sheriff. County sheriff wrote the federal agencies a letter and told them, if you come to my county, the only place you're going to see is my jail cell. There is no basis in the law to take this man's ranch and to take his land. In fact, the rancher never heard from the federal agencies again. That's how much power the sheriff has to ward off anybody, local, state, federal government, who's trying to usurp power and commit crimes. So the sheriff is singularly, when I met Sheriff Mack, which was very much a blessing. The first year I started doing Sovereign Radio in 2020, he was one of, I think, my first 10 guests. And when I got done talking to him, John, and as you just listened to him, I thought this man may be, if not one of the most important people in the country, the most important guy as far as the two things he talked about, safety and freedom. In terms of safety at a local level and our freedoms at a local level, the sheriff is the man, and the posse is the answer. I love his Gary Cooper high noon analogy. He's got so many great analogies, but it is so important, this idea of the posse. And let me tell you, it's a discussion that you cannot talk about very easily in open public political forums. The Democrats and the rhinos go nuts. When you talk about having a posse, they go crazy. And why is that? Because a posse is a legal entity, a local group of men, brotherhood, bound together and packing guns, baby. And they're able to go out into the county in the communities and have a major effect. There's a guy running for office in New York named Curtis Sliwa. You remember Mr. Sliwa?
Oh, I know him well. When I lived in New York, I remember him well. Yeah.
Yeah. What was his organization called? I forgot. They wore the red hats,
Yeah.
the berets.
Angels,
Something
something,
Angels.
something angels. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's not coming to me, but
The red hat. Yeah.
yeah, with the red berets. He's still wearing his beret as he's out campaigning, by the way. I think he's running for mayor of New York, right? Is he running
I
for
hope so
mayor or
because
governor?
they
I
could
don't
use
remember.
him. They could use him.
Yeah, yeah. But my point is, they formed a brotherhood. Now, they didn't pack and carry guns, but they were out every night, the Angels, his group, policing, uh, and, were wired into the New York Police Department. It was a cooperative effort. So this is the power of a posse, whether they're carrying guns or not. There are counties and communities where the sheriff has a posse, and locally men have gotten together in their brotherhood to teach the community signs of human trafficking and pedophiles. I was just told a story 2 nights ago, John, about a guy who was called upon. The FBI didn't believe they had the authority to bust down the doors of a hotel where there was a room full of kids, and two Chinese men walked into the hotel with a room full of children. And the FBI didn't have probable cause. And they asked one of the sheriff's posse, who happened to have hacking skills, would you check into this hotel and see what you can see going on in this hotel with the kids? Well, he not only hacked into the hotel successfully, he somehow got a camera into the room, or there was a camera in the room. He was able to look into the room, report back to the FBI. There are a number of children. He couldn't count them all. He saw a Chinese adult male, and he saw two other things: a shotgun and a bong. Go figure. Those two things go real well together, don't they? Guys are sitting in a room doing bongs with shotguns. That's great. Um, and with a pack of children. So the point is,
Ugh.
the posse, which is a legal entity, or a group like Curtis Lee was, that is out in the community policing peacefully, uh, without arms, so they're no threat to anybody. I think these are the kinds of organizations. Sheriffs must have a posse. What do you do if you're a sheriff and you don't have a posse, and you have a group of 10 men that are terrorizing your town? If you don't have a posse and you don't have the cooperation of the local police, and how many cities are the police in these blue cities going to take care of uh, 10 guys who are here illegally, and they're tearing up the town? And it's happened, right? The Tren de Agua goes into apartment buildings in Colorado, and they take over the apartment building. If the sheriff had a posse and was a constitutional sheriff, they could go into that apartment building. The police were not willing to. So this is so important, this idea of a posse. And again, you can join Sheriff Mack's posse. Go to the CSPOA.org. It's a small monthly maintenance fee. I don't remember what it is, but it really helps support his organization, because his money comes from we the people. He's a man that relies on we the people to fund the CSPOA. It truly is by the people and for the people, the CSPOA. It is Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org,
Mhm.
to join the posse, buy his books. Now, John, I told you he was going to hold up his 10th Amendment victory pamphlet. Did I not tell you he
You
would hold
did.
that up?
You called it.
And and rightfully so. He's proud of that because it had such a great effect on what's happening, in our cities with guns, our ability, the ability to protect the Second Amendment. Those are the first couple things that come to mind. Some other things he talked about: 26 ways to come to the USA legally. And I'll tell you, the only people that are having success right now coming here legally, you talked about some kids waiting 13 years. That was you that said that, right?
It was my mom's uh, condo friend. Yeah, her kids who are grown have been trying to come from Romania for 13 years. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the mother of my daughter, my wonderful second ex-wife, great lady, uh, married a Mexican man who had no legal rights to come to the USA. So they went through the process. And only because they have the money to hire lawyers on both sides of the border, he got his green card in 2 years. He was able to come here in 2 years. Now he's here. He's in the US on a green card. When I say he's here, I'm in Mexico. He's in the United States now, in California, living with the mother of my daughter. And he now has a 10-year waiting process to become a citizen. I believe it's 10 years. But my point is, in this story, you have to be really well heeled financially to even get here legally, which is really kind of a sad state of affairs, that our legal process is such that unless you have money, good luck. I assume this woman from Romania does not have a lot of financial resources, can't hire lawyers in Romania and the US to work together to
Right.
get the children here. So
Right.
that is such an important thing. Even the 26 ways to come here legally are not easy. Has to follow. That's what makes it so frustrating to see what is now estimated at 40 million illegals during the Biden administration. Not the 8 or 12 they claim, not
Correct.
the 20 million I thought. It's now 40 million, according to the Trump administration and Tom Homan. We got quite a cleanup job. And do you know who was the most irritated, upset, hot under the collar group about the illegals in America? Immigrants who came here legally.
Mm-hmm.
They are pissed off, man. Whether they're from Mexico or from
Understandable.
Romania or South America, they are really ticked because they paid a price to go through the waiting period in the process, and they're watching people stream over the border, not paying a dime to the U.S. government, but to who? Cartels. Who are they paying to come here? They paid a fee to the cartel. Many of them sold their children to the cartel under false pretenses, of course. The cartel doesn't tell you, I want your kids because I'm going to traffic them. That's not what they think. They think uh, they're giving their children to the cartel as collateral to make sure they're going to pay their fees for having been dragged through Central America and through Mexico and brought to the border by the cartels to the spot they could just walk right over the border. I was at one of those spots. When we did take our border back, we went down to the border 4 or 5 times. I did. We as a group went down 6 times. And we watched people come over the border. We talked to them. The most interesting thing, and it's kind of it's a small thing in the big picture, but it is the most interesting to me. Everybody walking over the border had on clean new Nikes. Don't you find that interesting? So we asked them, where did you get your clean new Nikes? Well, we got them when we were dropped off at the border. We all got our new shoes. You're coming over the border. You ostensibly walked through Central America and the Darien Gap, one of the most mud, flea, horribly infested places in the world, the Darien Gap. You cannot come here in clean shoes, if you
Mm.
know what I mean. You cannot walk across the border if you came on that journey in clean shoes. They
Right.
all had clean white Nikes on. Different models, by the way. It's not just one model of Nikes, different models. They all had backpacks. They all had cell phones. And this is what ticks off the legal immigrants. They're watching this happen and going, hey, wait a minute. God, when I came to this country 20 years ago, I paid lawyers, I waited my time, I took tests, I raised my hand and I took an oath.
Learned English.
Yep, I learned English. Our grandparents, mine and yours, assimilated. They came here to
Yes.
assimilate, right? They came here to assimilate, to coalesce around our Constitution
Right.
and our laws in this country. The illegals are not here for the same purpose. They're here
Right.
brought by the Democrats and the rhinos. I don't blame just the Democrats.
Sure.
There's enough mischief in the Republican Party
Oh, yeah.
to allow this to happen. I don't see too many Republicans stand up. There were a handful and scream during the 4 years of the Biden administration about the illegal immigration. Very interesting conversation that he brought up Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
How does that tie to the local sheriff? Well, local sheriffs are watching are watching Planned Parenthood and these abortion manufacturing centers and the trafficking centers. And many sheriffs know it's happening, John. They know children are being trafficked and murdered. I mean, there's a time and place for abortion, and we won't get in. Not the point of the conversation. When is it right for a woman to have abortion? And you and I can sit and talk about that. And there's a time and a place for it, particularly where a woman did not conceive that child of her own volition. She was raped, right? That's
Yeah, but
to me fair enough. An abortion. My point here is I want to make it very clear that if you have a constitutional sheriff and a posse and you're willing to tangle ass, pardon the expression, with Planned Parenthood or any NGO, you can put a stop to the trafficking that's going on through organizations like Planned Parenthood and these religious, both Christian and Jewish family services in San Diego. My grandparents were Jewish, so I can say this. No one can accuse me of being anti-Semitic, John. Jewish Family Services in San Diego is one of the most horrific organizations in California. They are facilitating the human trafficking of illegals getting here. Then they're taking care of their housing. Money's being funneled through organizations like Jewish Family Services. And again, a constitutional sheriff can put a stop to a lot of that if he's willing to stand up to it and throw the book at him. And by the book, I mean the Constitution. We can stop a lot of this, but that's not going on in too many cities. Sheriff Mack isn't training enough sheriffs. That is the real story to tell here is the CSPOA is not getting enough traction with sheriffs.
right.
Sheriff Mack might tell you that 80% of our counties are infested with non-constitutional thinking sheriffs who will not use the Constitution to run their county. 80% of our counties.
Yeah.
I think it may be higher. It may even be higher, but it's pretty sad when you have a sheriff who will not enforce the Constitution and the freedom and safety of our country, our heritage, our culture depends on a constitution, right? What makes
Absolutely.
America so unique and envied? And I can say envied because I have friends in Australia, in Romania, in South America, in Canada that envy our constitution. They tell me all the time, we wish we had your constitution. The Australians and the Canadians in particular, the Five Eyes countries that speak English.
Sure.
My friends in Australia gave up their guns a bunch of years ago in the 90s, and they regret it.
Big
They
mistake.
don't have a Second Amendment.
Right. Scotty, I know we're running short on time, so I want on at a time.
Yep.
And of course, we'll leave the links in the description. But I do want to end real quick, Scott, with this one important question that ties everything together. How did you come across meeting Sheriff Mack, and how well does that bode for Sovereign Radio and your other list of alliances?
That's a great question. Not so much as how I met him, because connections are easy to make if you seek them out. So I heard about Sheriff Mack and the CSPOA in late 2020, and in 2021, I was on the Arise tour, a tour put together by Robert David Steele and Sasha Stone, and I was speaker, MC sort of guy on that tour, and Sheriff Mack was one of the main 5 speakers on the tour. So we met while touring the country together on the Arise tour. And as I said, the first time I talked to him, I realized he may be one of the most important men in America. So how that bodes for Sovereign Radio, we are committed to keeping the CSPOA in front of our audience and our other content creators, our partners like you that now have channels set up on Sovereign Radio. We're going to ask them all, like you have today, had Sheriff Mack on. They're all going to have Sheriff Mack in front of their audiences. We're all going to support the CSPOA, and we're proud of that. I mean, I think it's a great asset to Sovereign Radio to have an organization like the CSPOA to stand behind us and for us to stand behind them, to stand together as one and promote the Constitution through the only elected official, law enforcement official in the county, John, and that's the sheriff.
100%. This is, as I told you, and I told Sheriff Mack on air, I made no secret to you offline. This is somebody I've wanted to connect with for quite some time. So real grateful to you for putting that together and for him, sacrificing his valuable time to do it. And of course, we're going to leave that link in the description where people can donate, where people can go to CPSOA, also Sovereign Radio, so that they can, because you have a lot of noteworthy alliances, SGNon and Sheriff Mack amongst the many. There's also a gentleman you and I are going to be doing a podcast with in the near future who's a financial expert, particularly in crypto. I'm referring to Rob Cunningham. And then also I want to bring on that woman that we talked about for gardening, because that is an important component of becoming your own central bank, becoming self-sufficient, living off the land, something everybody's keenly interested in. But this woman has a particular subject matter emphasis that I think people in our audience respectively need to hear. So we'll look forward to that in the future. But
by the way, that's Marjorie Wildcraft from the Grow Network.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, there you go.
I was going to have you announce that. So, Scotty, thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate you. Again, we'll leave the links in the description. Any final thoughts you have for the audience today?
We appreciate you having Sheriff Mack on. I really am sincere when I say he may be one of the most important men, if not the most important guys, at least in terms of our relationships at Sovereign Radio. I think he is the most important relationship because we need more sheriffs that are willing to stand behind our Constitution. Other than that, good to see you, my friend, and
yes, sir.
Always good to talk with you, whether it's your show or on Sovereign Radio, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely. We will look forward to it, and we will see you again on the flip side. Thanks again, Scotty, for being here at Sovereign Radio and Sheriff Mack. We will leave those links. Appreciate it, and have a blessed day.
You too, John. CSPOA.org. Join the posse.
Yes, sir.